Hello, welcome back to another video. Today I have my husband with me and we're bringing you guys some tiny house content. We have been in our tiny house for about 2.5 months now, and when we initially got it delivered up here to Sonoma County, there were a few things that did not exactly meet our expectations or kind of threw us off and surprised us. So in the spirit of planning to come out with a handful of tiny house videos, I thought that it would make sense to start, for the most part, at the beginning. Literally when we got the tiny house. And we know that there are a lot of people out there that are really interested in tiny houses right now. They're thinking about making moves just like we did. The company that we worked for actually ended up closing its doors. And so for how things worked out, we were like, you know what? We're looking for a change. We want to move. We did do the move. We sold our townhouse. We bought a tiny house. And we kind of dove into it not knowing a ton of information. And we were a little bit rushed in our process when we were picking a builder, making a lot of decisions, and just getting the ball rolling. We used to live in San Diego County, so we ended up picking a builder that was based in San Diego, and it took them 5.5 weeks to do the project, which to us was amazing. They actually have a couple tiny houses that they're building at the same time. They're all the exact same floor plan, layout, everything, and everywhere else that we were looking, it was like, what, 6 months, a year and a half.
The lead times were crazy.
It was a lot. And so just, again, the simple fact that we could find something that was ready in this timing, we were like, well, we don't really have any other options. Like, this is what we're gonna do. So hopefully seeing and hearing the things that arrived with our tiny house, things that we didn't expect. Maybe these can be things that you talk to your builder about, things that you keep in mind. For us, all of these are lesson learned, and hopefully you guys can use these so that you don't even have to find yourself in this situation, and your tiny house can start off at a, a little step up than maybe ours did. One of my bubby's favorite subjects.
Yes.
The electrical in our tiny house. We initially thought, naively, that when our tiny house arrived, that we would be able to take a cord, plug it into our tiny house, plug it into the electric thing at the RV park, and it would just work. The lights would turn on, the blender would blend, the espresso machine would espresso.
How naive.
We were naive. We were naive. And our first roadblock was...
They put a outlet box on our tiny house instead of an inlet box, which means that it's a female receptacle, which in and of itself is not the end of the world, but our pedestal's also a female receptacle.
As are 99.9% of...
Yes. The world, typically, it's... So I just had no way to hook it up.
And they told us when he reached out to them after the fact, like, hey, what's going on with this? They said that they bought 10 of them, getting a deal, because another company had requested that that be put on their vehicles. So like, oh, let's just use the rest of ours on the tiny houses that we're building now. So it was completely happenstance that it ended up on our tiny house. And normally not what they do, but also 100% what's not going to work. Basically ended up being that we had to bring an electrician out. Long story short, you want to make sure that you have the right plugs on your tiny house. We didn't know we needed to be aware of that or check that. Due to not being able to plug in our tiny house right away like expected, we ended up being without power in the walls for like 3 weeks, I would say. We're basically living off of our solar power, which we would plug into, what's that thing called in the back?
The RV hookup.
Which we would just plug into the electrical RV hookup outside of the tiny house, fill that up, and then bring the battery bank into our tiny house and plug everything into it. It was a comical mess of cords, but it did work really well, and the battery lasted a long time. So that was Lion Energy, bought it from Costco. I've rambled about that in plenty of videos, but so far, you would suggest them, wouldn't you?
Oh, highly suggest them.
Yeah.
They we haven't been able to generate all the solar we'd like to just because of our location.
It hasn't run our whole tiny house.
Yeah, but it's been a great battery backup where we can just, like she said, charge it with that cord, unplug it, and then plug pretty much our whole house into it.
We have 4 solar panels right now on top of the house, and as you might be able to hear and see out the window, it is raining. And it has been raining and overcast for some time. It's not a great gauge of what the solar panels can potentially do. But right now we have them running our refrigerator. We have them running what charges our phones and our watches. I think that's it right now.
Yeah.
But we still have some things running on it, so it feels kind of fun.
Yeah, that's
it's a thing.
100-watt panels. So once I get the other 2 up there on a perfect sunny day, I should be able to generate 600 watts in an hour, which is a good amount. But we haven't gotten to that yet.
But it'll happen.
On our property.
Yes. We finally had an electrician come out, fix that box for us. We were able to hook it up to the RV hookup for their electrical. Again, we thought all of our problems would be solved, right? Wrong. All the lights worked except for in the bathroom for some reason. And even at that point, the lights, which unfortunately they still do now, they flicker a lot because we do have them on dimmers, but Jared suspects that the lights that were installed are not meant to be dimmable lights, and then the switches that were put in are dimmer switches, because that is what we requested. That just leaves them flickering a lot. They don't get too low, and even when they're on their lowest or their highest, they flicker. Like in the bathroom, I mean, spoiler alert now that the lights in the bathroom work. If you turn on the bathroom light when the dimmer is all the way up, so it's at the brightest setting, it flashes so much, and you have to like either turn it down or turn it off for a second, like turn the dimmer down and then turn it back on. It's a whole little game. After finding out that our bathroom lights were not working, we reached out to the contractor. They said that everything was working, but
yeah, they installed everything and did their power test with switches, and then moved the tiny house to the warehouse, and at that point they had no power hookup, but that's where they did the dimmer switch out. They just couldn't test their work. And
they didn't know it didn't work.
Figured it was fine and said, here you go.
We became best friends with Michael, our electrician, because he had to come so many times.
Basically, we had Michael out after he installed the power junction, and, you know, we had the new electrical issues we had discovered with power. Upon Michael opening everything up, he just noticed that some wire nuts were loose, some wiring was kind of not what you'd expect to see in that type of switch, and then some things were just not connected, like in the case of the bathroom fan situation.
Or like the ground wire that they were using.
Yeah, on the 3-pole system, they use the ground wire as the connector to go between the two switches, which is not, I guess, the right way to do it. You can do it that way, but it's not safe if you don't know that that ground wire is electrified. He was able to fix it so that the switches functioned the way that we originally intended them to, because they didn't upon arrival. And then he, you know, obviously got the fan and the bathroom working. Another thing that he told us was they used the, you know, clearance bin, cheap as you can go kind of switches, but he came back with a little bit better quality dimmers and things like that too, because he said that the problem could have just been the unit itself he pulled out of the wall, because then he could warranty it.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to warranty the work if he was reusing the switches that were installed.
Yeah.
So I figured I'd, you know, give me new stuff.
And he said that when looking at it, and it's like, I don't want to be bashing the people that made our tiny house. That is not my intent.
Yeah.
We want to tell you guys about our experience so that if you are hoping to go down a similar path, that you just know what to look out for, what to ask questions about, just different things like that. But when he opened up the wiring, he said it does not look like a professional electrician or someone that knew what they were doing worked on your tiny house.
No.
Next on the list is our roofing / siding situation. The delivery gentleman, the delivery driver, I see Barney up top, the delivery driver of the tiny house let us know that when on the way here, there was a lot of wind that rattled the roofing and ended up loosening some of the roofing on the raised loft part of our tiny house.
Yeah.
But either way, whoever's fault it is, whether it was an act of weather or what have you, we ended up with a roof that needed repairing.
I picture a flag hanging out of someone's car, whipping back and forth enough times that it starts fraying. Mm-hmm. I just don't know if our metal roof
would have done that.
Can do that
in less than 600 miles.
And then it shears off?
Yeah. I don't know. We've never had a tiny house before, so maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah.
He got to learn how to do some roofing, because as it is raining now, it was also raining then. Yep. So he ended up, you went to Home Depot?
Yeah, I had to get some silver metal corrugated, you know, not the exact matching thing, because they only have what they have at Home Depot. And then get some tin snips. That wasn't a thing in my mind before I needed to do this, so now I know what tin snips are. Wish I got 2 pair.
But we will link a pair in the description box below, by the way, just to make your life easier.
I had to cut out a square and fit it underneath the existing roofing so that the water would, you know, run off what's there onto what I'm installing. I used the same holes, so I didn't create any new roofing holes. The screws, funny enough, were still there, but the metal was missing. So I guess it
like sheared off,
yeah,
like
ripped,
torn around it.
Exactly, tore around, up and off the screws. So the screws were still there. So I just took those out, put the roofing in, drilled holes in the roofing to match up, put the screws back in.
After Jared fixed the roof with the pieces that were peeling up, we assumed that that would be the most of our roof woes and our water woes. We were initially concerned that, especially because, like I mentioned, it had been raining around that time when it was delivered, that we were scared that water was going to get onto the wood, kind of seep into places that it wasn't supposed to. So we were stoked to have that fixed before the rain, but then it started raining. And then we found out that there were more problems. Yeah, go for it.
Two things. Number one, I think that the tiny house obviously shifts when it's being driven and moved, and then you get it where you need to go and you have to level it. The door frame, that was the first thing I noticed was leaking. I, being an inexperienced leak person, I sealed it from the inside.
And in the rain, panicking, like, what do we do?
Yeah, there's water coming in my house, I gotta stop it. So
yeah.
I have silicone, that's literally all I have, so I smeared it into the cracks. A neighbor saw me on the roof when I was doing the repairs, so he gave me a spray can of Flex Seal, which I was also using a little bit of.
That has saved us a handful of times now. We didn't even know there was a spray Flex Seal.
Its first indication there was a problem was the door frame was leaking at the bottom and the top. The bottom I'm not so worried about, I sealed that up, but the top was a big problem. We sealed that up and I thought that was the end of it.
It just kept beading up on the edges, and then the beads would accumulate enough that it would start dripping.
Yep.
Is how we were seeing it happen.
After we finished sealing up the door to the best of our ability at the time, the next day, I think it was, we noticed that the window frames, 2 of them, were leaking right behind the trim as well. That was pretty concerning because it was a steady drip, like every 5 seconds, just coming right through. And if it's coming through at the top of the trim on our window, then it's probably along the trim as well in the walls.
And we find this out before it's about to rain for like 8 days in a row.
Oh yeah, it's like this atmospheric river storm coming to the west coast. I frantically go out, try to figure out the source of this. I think it's the roof. I'm like looking at the roof, I'm looking up roofing how-tos. Well, what's missing in this video that's on my roof? Long story short, what I discovered a little bit too late, because I had already called roofers to come out to fix our house, was there's a seam all the way around our tiny house where the siding probably is as long as it gets. And then from there, they need to start a new set of siding to get to the top of the side of our house. The guy that was tasked with the job of caulking that seam only caulked the raised part, and he just didn't caulk all the valleys. And so the roofer showed up, I showed them everything that I had figured out, and they saw that seam, and they're like, oh dude, that's it. It's like,
gotta seal it.
The water's running down the wall, into the seam, behind the siding, and it's just hanging out with all your wood. I had them look up at the roof, and it appears that they did plywood, insulation, the other layer of plywood, the tar paper for waterproofing, and then normally you would have flashing, like 90-degree metal, around the edge, going from where the tar paper is to the edge of the building so that the water just runs off the edge of the building. There's no flashing on our roof. So it just kind of runs over the wood. Because we were up there on the ladders looking down, we could now see that the top level of all of the siding, trim, roof, wood, they didn't paint the top of the wood. So it's like, seal up my house, man.
All these things seem so silly, but if it's going to be something that can help prevent from water damage, mold.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like such an easy step that should be ensured to not be skipped.
But we have no more leaks now.
Thank goodness.
At least
and it's raining,
yeah.
So everything's good. Also on the note, when it comes to things like electrical, roofing, stuff like that, to me, it's a daunting conversation subject, because it's like, I assume that my builder is going to do their due diligence and they're going to build it in a way that's going to last, in a way that's going to work. There are different certifications that tiny houses can have, and when they have those, I would imagine that you are a lot more, I almost want to say guaranteed to not have a lot of these problems. And when we were talking to the company that does these, they said that all of their tiny houses would pass the RVIA certification. but that they don't bother putting it through the certification because that costs like $3,000 or something. And they're like, you don't want to pay another $3,000, do you? And we're like, well, no, we don't want to pay another $3,000.
I would have gladly paid it now.
I know. So we've even kind of joked about, well, what if we just have someone come out and try and certify it now just to see, so that we know, and we can almost go back to them and be like, it's not REIA certified, but I don't, maybe it is. But
I don't think so.
What's the other certification?
NOAA. One of them is for tiny homes, and one of them is for RVs, but they will put that certification on a tiny home as well. But essentially, there's no code enforcement on a tiny house, technically. If I built this house on a foundation on our property, the city would need to come out to certify that I did everything to standards for safety, technically.
Yeah.
Like, you can put whatever you want on a trailer, call it a tiny home, and sell it to somebody, and depending on what you write on the bill of sale, it's a totally legal, normal purchase.
Yeah.
If you didn't do anything wrong, you might be selling something a little dangerous.
And then noting the bill of sale, that was the contract that we signed when putting our down payment and when they started doing the construction on the tiny house. They had everything written out. And then at the bottom of that, which we were already like practically deposit sent, this is what we're doing, there's no reason to not be with this company. We're like reading everything through, and like the last line basically says that it is sold as is. You cannot come back with any complaints. If anything is wrong, it is not our fault. Take it. Maybe that's more commonplace because I have clearly read and signed one purchase agreement and bill of sale for a tiny house, but that is something that kind of threw me off. So maybe something to ask the builder about. Like, there could even be a warranty. I'm sure that a lot of companies have warranties with their tiny houses, even if it's just for a year. You can go through all of the seasons, go through the heat, go through the rain, go through snow, depending on where you're living.
Yeah.
See how all of the seasons affect the tiny house. We will have other videos coming out in the future that dive more into these things. Another specifically what I wish we knew before buying the tiny house. There's just too many things to put into one video. But now diving into the aesthetic side of things, from the design standpoint. So like I said, the way that they do their tiny houses, it's very cookie cutter. So they have just one sink for you in the kitchen with your counter, nothing expanded. They had a downstairs bedroom with a loft above, and then the bathroom with another loft above. It was a shower, small vanity, but I definitely had specific ideas for what I wanted to have in our tiny house. And I really enjoyed like drawing layout plans, houses, and stuff like that. So I had my vision. I asked the builder if they were able to kind of go with that and use that for finishing building the tiny house, and they said that wouldn't be a problem at all. So I was very specific with what I wrote down. We didn't meet in person before we decided to go with them as a builder. We walked through a tiny house that they were almost finished building, but after that everything was done on the phone. So I do think that part of this little glitch could have been fixed by if we had gone in person and been able to see the tiny house as it was being built, or if we had even just been in person and had the piece of paper in front of us on the table in between ourselves and the builder, and we could point at everything and explain, and just, you know, there aren't as many distractions, they aren't like on the phone with you and doing other stuff, or I don't know, lost in translation, whatever it might be. And some of these things might seem silly, but the reason that I bring them up is because I did specifically write them out in our layout plan. It was agreed upon. We expected it to come this way. It's just something where I've kind of learned that I need to be a little bit more in tune, in touch with what's going on at different steps of the process. So this window that's right here behind us, as you guys can see, it goes behind the fridge a little bit on the left. But in our drawings for the builder, they knew that we wanted to have the refrigerator there and then have the table to the right of the refrigerator. But unfortunately, our window ended up justified to the left, therefore, like I said, making it behind the refrigerator a little bit. Not the end of the world, but something where it's like, if you look at it too long, it looks kind of silly, and it's like, why is your fridge in front of your window? When it comes to the outlets in our house, we did request that they be made with the USB and the C-type plugs, and then also like the regular ones as well. And we have so many things that we know that we need to plug in. I was very specific on where we hope to have the outlets. So in the living room, we ended up with outlets that were on just the far wall. So there are two outlets on the far wall, And we had to have another one installed on a different wall just because of where things are laid out. We do have cats. We have 2 electrical food bowls. As you can hear the kitty meowing. Miss Barney probably going to join. We have 2 food bowls. We have a kitty bowl. Just a handful of things. The air filter, they do need to be plugged in. So without bogging down electrical outlets, I wish that they had just gone by what was requested.
I think they just went with like the blueprint that they have for all the other places. But it's just so funny to me that Alicia literally has drawings that are, you know, to scale of where exactly we would have liked to have the sockets, and it was never communicated at any time that, oh no, we're not going to put them there.
Right.
We don't want to.
Right, yeah.
Just, okay, that's fine, just tell me.
Just let us know. And they approved the design and the layout, and again, we talked about specific placement of outlets, and they were like, yep, cool, sounds great. So, just a little thing that threw me off. As I know I have mentioned in a prior video, our kitchen countertop is incorrect. We were hoping to get the butcher block. It seems that they have 2 types of counters that they typically use. They have a faux looking marble composite counter that's made with like a plastic topping. Then the other option is butcher block. And I said that I would love to have butcher block. She said she would do the best that she could to find it. I said let me know if you don't, and then I'll also try to do some footwork to like see what we can do. And I assumed that they just have, again, I assumed that they have the butcher block and that everything would be handled because they knew that that was what I preferred. And then we start seeing photos get sent our way, and I was just like, that is not butcher block. And so I reached out, I asked her about the situation. She was like, yeah, honestly, I just couldn't find any. And I was like, that does not make sense to me, but that seems like that's your answer, and that seems like that's where we are. So something that's sort of in the design category are cabinets in the kitchen. I did not specifically request a certain amount of drawers, a certain amount of cabinet. We just had a link that was to be taken up by the kitchen counter, and after putting in the appliances, whatever space was left for cabinetry, fill it with cabinetry. Long story short, in our kitchen, they gave us 1 drawer.
Yes.
1 drawer.
And it's this big.
That big. And we're in a tiny house. We understand there's not as much space, not as much storage, but when you have the availability for storage, you want to utilize it the best that you can because you're in a tiny house. So there is another spot that they could have put a drawer, but it's just the face of the drawer, not an actual drawer. Because apparently when they went to purchase this, because Jared reached out to them after the fact to ask what the heck's going on, they went to purchase it from Lowe's, and there are 2 different types of cabinets that are sold. There's the one that is sold to be expected to have a sink installed, and so it doesn't need to have a drawer, it doesn't come with a drawer, or the kind that would not have a sink installed that would then of course come with a drawer. And they only have the one that did not have a drawer, and they were like, well, we need to get this made and done, so they just bought that one and installed that one. And with Lowe's, it is sort of near impossible to buy just the drawer by itself. We went through a lot of back and forth between different people that work at Lowe's, calling online, and Jared actually was able to finally order this for us.
I had to go in store to speak to the cabinetry department, who had to place a special order with the manufacturer of the cabinets so that they could buy the drawer box and the slides that are made for our specific cabinetry. Obviously, I can go to a cabinetry store and just tell them my measurements, like, hey, this is what I need. But I mean, if it's part of a set, like, I'm gonna want what was designed to be in that space.
So technically, that should have arrived yesterday. It did not. Hopefully, it arrives today, and we might pick it up.
I'll be picking it up, yeah.
The almost most interesting part to me about our little design glitches, our little design hooplas, would be the washer dryer cabinet that we requested to be built. We went with a all-in-one washer dryer, so it doesn't need as much space as a stackable unit. For how everything is configured, we wanted to have the washer dryer right outside of the bathroom, but built into a cabinet. This would give us the availability to have the washer dryer combo on the bottom that would create a shelf with its flat top, and then above that we have a kind of like a mini pantry and a little cabinet that we're able to store things in. So that was the plan. We sent photos, we had conversations. It was later brought to our attention that where we wanted it located was going to end up being right above the wheel well. So it actually needed to be put up on a platform, and then we could still have the cabinet built in. And this needed to be something done by an outsourced professional. We were fine with that. We're like, hey, at least we know it'll be done well. Sounds good to us. If it works with the plan and timing, sounds good. So they put in the order for the cabinet. We were never presented with a physical plan for it. Maybe we should have requested a physical plan for it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But 9 o'clock at night, tiny house finally arrives. We're so excited.
So excited.
Jared gets inside. The first thing he notices is the washing machine had been placed inside the cabinet where requested, but it had not been tied down by any means.
It was on its face.
It had fallen forward, damaging the front of both the washer and the dishwasher because of where it hit. We ended up following our tiny house in here, and
Secure our washing machine sideways on the ground.
we'll figure it out.
I also love that it was hooked into the water. So if it wasn't the perfect length that it was, it just kind of fit in that space great. But if those hoses had been a little bit shorter, I bet the washer would have just ripped the plumbing out of the wall.
Ooh, it would have been terrible.
But they were just perfectly taut, and the washer dryer was perfectly on its face, and they were just kind of, that's all you get.
Yeah.
So, haven't had a problem with any of the plumbing.
Nope.
So.
Thank goodness. And there are, knock on, not wood. 2 little issues that led to the washer being able to fall over. Thing number 1, when moving your tiny house, you really want to strap stuff down. We had already moved up to this area due to the date of when the tiny house finished and when we needed to be out of the townhouse that we sold. So we asked our builder if there wouldn't be any issue with her being the last one that handed the keys off to the delivery service that was bringing it up here. And she had even mentioned prior that you want to make sure that you do tie things down in the tiny house. So I assumed that she would make sure that anything that needed to be tied down would be tied down. And we didn't have the fridge in here. The fridge was coming up separately. There wasn't any furniture. So really the only things that were in here, like we had cabinets, but there was nothing in them. There were no shelves on the wall at that point. The only thing that would need to get tied down is the washer dryer. So it's like, that would have been so nice if that was tied down. Another thing that would have really helped it to be able to stay in place would have been if they had actually built the cabinet out the full length of the washer dryer. By the way, sorry for the peanut gallery. She's just over here hanging out. She's adorable. I know you guys can kind of see her.
Yeah.
If she's not here, she's there. She's there. You can hear. It's a tiny house. She's here. So.
You're lucky there aren't 3 cats here right now.
Oh my gosh, I know. I don't even know where the other 2 are. I don't know about you. I'm feeling 22. So that is where the cabinet ends. It comes out another 4 inches, I would say, to where the feet are down there. And then after that, it comes out even more for the bulb. I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. I just kind of expected when I requested to have a cabinet made for the washer dryer that, you know, the washer dryer would fit in the cabinet. Currently, we just found a way to stack something that would give us even height. So we'd initially bought these for outside, didn't end up needing them, and then we just grabbed 2 stepping stones that were outside to make the perfect height. Now it doesn't shake when we use the washer dryer, but obviously it looks funny and it's not how it's designed to be held. It's not as easy to see now, but there is a scuff here, a couple little dings, and those were from where the washer was leaning up against it. And then here's the dent that unfortunately is not covered under Whirlpool warranty. Of course it's gonna slide. Of course it's gonna fall when you're driving a tiny house 550 miles north on the freeway and on all of these roads when only 2 out of 4 of its feet are even on secure ground.
It's already slanted forward.
Exactly. We were considering building a wooden platform and putting that underneath it, but we have decided that once our tiny house moves again in not too much time, we are actually just gonna put the washer dryer, girlfriend, in a exterior building that we figure out, which will help a lot with the venting issues that we kind of have. So it'll work out in the end, moving it somewhere else, and then we'll just turn that cabinet into a pantry or something of the sort. I'm just kind of like, It does not make sense how you guys build this. I don't know how you expected the washer dryer to fit in here. I don't know.
Their argument was the depth of the cabinet that was built matches the depth of these cabinets, and it would look weird if that cabinet was deeper, you know? But I'm not worried about looks, I'm worried about housing my washer dryer.
Yes. Safely, so that when it shakes, it's not off kilter.
And it looks weirder to have a washer dryer hanging out of the cabinet.
Yeah. And then the way that we're like keeping it there, I'm like,
Oh
look at our cute tiny house. And then our bright yellow stack stanchion things and like a brick.
Yeah.
I can't right now. Okay. Last but not least, kind of design, kind of not design, but just, you know, things that came up. The first time we went to use our dishwasher, maybe even before we went to use our dishwasher, I'm pretty sure, we noticed that the, what do you call it? The outtake, the water thingy.
The air gap.
You guys know that thing that typically sits to the right of your sink when your dishwasher is running. If it ever gets backed up, it shoots water into your sink just in case there's like an issue. Apparently that's called an air gap.
Yep.
And ours was installed on the counter, not on the sink or like shooting into the sink or anything of the sort. So if water had come out of that air gap, it would have gone all over to everything on the counter, onto the floor, just everywhere.
Why didn't you put it on the sink?
I don't know. I don't know. So that's weird.
So normally dishwasher came through this cabinet from the other cabinet over there, went up to the air gap, came back down with a little, you know, black plastic hose deal to the drain pipe here. But when we ran the dishwasher, the water would just shoot out the top.
Does anybody know what this is? Does anybody know what this is?
I suspect.
Because we found it sitting in our dishwasher.
Yeah.
Like, we opened the dishwasher and we pulled out the rack where the dishes would go, and this was just sitting there. And it's got, still to this day,
White gunk.
yeah, it's not even like, it's like grease.
It's
he Googled.
I could not find this thing. It looks like some sort of steam system because on our espresso maker it has this kind of gasket thing with the little lines going to where, you know, this comes out. But like, I could not find a place to hook this up.
There's nothing's missing
in there. I reverse image searched it on Google. I typed in the one string of numbers that's on it. I couldn't find it.
We looked through the user owner manual for the Bosch dishwasher, and we even looked for the washer dryer in case it was related to that. Literally no idea. So
I'm not throwing it away.
Super settling.
The moment I throw it away,
super settling, right?
I'll find out what it's for.
Yeah.
So
let us please.
Yeah.
Comments. Tell us. Save us.
I'm hoping it's like a just-in-case part.
Right.
For these types of installations, use this part for blah blah, and it just didn't apply to us. Hopefully.
Didn't happen. Last two things having to do with rails, ironically, are sliding door behind us. That barn door goes to the bathroom, and they installed the top track for us. The door was kind of on the ground, so we put the door up. We were almost using the sliding door as the gauge for if our tiny house was level or not. Because if the tiny house was not level, the sliding door would open itself and it would just slide. Which, it's not the end of the world, it's not a huge issue, but to begin with, we didn't have a handle or a lock on it, like a little hook, so we couldn't even keep it, we had to like hold it. Come to find out that the railing itself was hung unevenly.
It's like 2 degrees slanted.
It's enough.
That way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I got us level, I thought that I was crazy because the door would still keep moving. So then I re-leveled us to the point where the door would stop moving. No, that's crooked.
So he put a level up on the rail and could literally see on that. He's like, all right, let me check. And yeah, it was uneven. So right now, totally fine. We're just making it work.
Yep.
It's doing what it's doing. We have now a lock hook, so it's not an issue.
Yeah, little latch and hole.
Exactly. But that's, little joys left and right. And then for our ladder that we have here that is access to both of the lofts, actually, it's like, should I even say this point? Because I don't even know exactly what I'm talking about. Our builder told us that they could not find the proper railing for the ladder to attach to.
On this side.
For just this side. See the confusion that is here right now. Basically, there was something that should be installed and attached to our wall that would make the ladder more secure and would make the ladder work better. But we were told that they could not find anything in time, so we were simply just not given anything.
But the ladder.
But the ladder. Which, if you see my prior video, you will know that the ladder is not even properly cut. I'm going to take footage from the last video and put it in this one to show you, because it's not even.
And it rests on that railing when you try to go up there.
Exactly.
Which it shouldn't if it was properly sized.
It is. So this is me standing on the ladder with hardly any of the ladder actually being secured at the top, due to where it hits the sliding door railing. We did not request anything different about the ladder or the sliding door than normal. So in theory, this is how they always make it. And it bumps here. And it bumps here. It's a lot of things that seem partially thought out and put together by people that knew they didn't have to live in it. And with meowing cats.
Great taste, awful execution.
Yeah. So, Barney.
At least be on camera.
Hi.
Don't be a disembodied meower.
Hi. Yeah, it looks like my hair's meowing.
Yeah.
What is that? Those are a lot of the roadblocks that we ran into at the very beginning. Some of the ways that we problem solved or troubleshot some of those. Basically also here just to humanize the process, because a lot of you guys are probably also doing this for the first time and there might be a little glitch here or there, but there's a lot of information online. There were a lot of people that we were able to talk to figure out what's going on. Any new experience like this is going to come with its own roadblocks, but I'm happy that we can at least share them with you guys so that you can know what to look out for, whatever it might be. So thanks again for tuning in. If you guys haven't subscribed already, please do so. We'll be coming out with a handful more videos. The next video will be coming out on Tuesday. Thank you for making it to the end. I hope that you guys got something out of it. And because you made it to the end, I'm assuming that you liked it. So give that video a like. We look forward to seeing you guys soon. Bye.